Good afternoon students. Today I am explaining one of the important concepts called as Harward controller architecture versus von Neumann process architecture. This is very important questions to be asked in the examination, and also it is asked in the interviews also. So, I am going to explain the differences between Harward processor versus von Neumann processor, or Harward controller architecture versus von Neumann controller architecture. That is Harward architecture versus von Neumann architecture. They will ask the question, explain the difference between Harward architecture and von Neumann architecture. If at all it is asked in the theory, you need to write the diagram like this. The first diagram represents the Harward architecture, and the second diagram represents von Neumann architecture. I will explain one by one the difference between Harward architecture and von Neumann architecture. In Harward architecture, separate buses for instruction and data fetching. Harward architecture uses separate buses for instruction and data fetching, whereas in von Neumann architecture it uses a single shared bus for instruction and data fetching. The first difference is it uses separate buses for instruction and data fetching. On the other side, under von Neumann architecture, it uses a single shared bus for instruction and data fetching. The second one is easier to pipeline, so high performance can be achieved. It uses a pipeline, so performance will be high. So low performance compared to Harward architecture, because they won't use the pipeline in the von Neumann architecture. And comparatively high cost. Harward architecture is high in cost, whereas it is less cost compared to von Neumann architecture is less cost compared to Harward architecture, and no memory alignment problems under Harward architecture. It allows self modifying codes under von Neumann architecture. And the last difference is data memory and program memory are stored physically in different locations. Data memory and program memory are stored physically in different locations. No chances of corruption of program memory, whereas in case of von Neumann architecture, data memory and program memory are stored physically in the same chip. So chances for accidental corruption of the program may take place. These are the main differences. And diagram, this is the diagram, a simple diagram representing the difference between Harward and von Neumann architecture. That is, the first diagram represents I/O, input and output, CPU and memory of the different bus connected on a single shared bus, whereas here it is von Neumann architecture, it is a single shared bus for instruction and data fetching. Thank you for listening.